The doctor killer.
And he was a doctor.
Oh, okay, but he's not dead, right?
Okay, if I pass out, here's what you do. Here's how you're going to take control of the vehicle.
With your skin complexion, you were a lifeguard?
Yeah. No, I didn't say it made a lot of good choices. No one's ever given me an opportunity.
Please go taste it, before you decide to like dedicate your life.
Behind it, they had this almond orchard, and
Okay. It seems like the meanest freaking sport.
I actually literally read that cover to cover with no Mustang in front of me.
Are you a Team Losi guy?
Manufacturing is chaos.
Hey guys, welcome to the Just Gonna Send It podcast. I'm your host, Jim Bolosic, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Phil Linscheid, Operations Director for SendCutSend. He heads up our brand new CNC machining venture. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
So we kind of wanted to talk about like how you got here, but not necessarily like what you're doing now. The big message that's important for me to get out is not everyone's path is straight. It took you a while to get to this level where you can run a huge team, you can pull a brand new business out of the ground, you can serve hundreds of thousands of customers. But you didn't just like say, at 10 years old, well, this is exactly what I'm going to do, and you've been on that path the whole time. So we're going to talk about like the dirty, crazy, blind turns that you had to get here. So let's start back like as early as we can. Sometimes we talk about the knack, like you either have it or you don't. Mm-hmm. When do you first remember like having the knack, having an interest in machines and machinery and stuff like that?
It's hard to say. So I think it wasn't observed as like a knack in my family. So in my family, I'm really the only one in manufacturing. And so I think when my parents were raising me, they were kind of like, what's wrong with this kid? Why does he keep taking things apart? Why does he keep messing with this stuff? And so for me, it always just felt like the thing to do. I never really understood why. It took me, even now, I think, I'm 44 now. It wasn't until like the last few years where I realized, I'm actually good at a few things. I never really thought that I was actually very good at anything. I just knew the things I had to do and I would do them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So
no, I've just never heard it put that way. That's really
so
cool.
Like that's just kind of how it was. So at a very early age, I was always the kid that would build the IKEA furniture or whatever furniture was before IKEA was around, fix the VCR, plug in the TV, all of those things, anything to do with figuring things out.
Internal tech support.
Yeah. And like typical people, I really don't enjoy manuals. But I will say the first book that I actually willingly read cover to cover was a Chilton's manual on a Mustang. I actually literally read that cover to cover with no Mustang in front of me.
Yeah.
That was my first real project car.
Well, that's like reading for necessity and self-interest, not as an assignment.
Yeah.
That was. How old were you when you read the Chilton manual?
Probably like preteen, maybe 12, maybe 11, 13, maybe.
Because that car, we'll talk about the car a little more, but that car has been in your family since right?
65, yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned something where, you were taking stuff apart and your parents were just like, what are you doing? Because that wasn't, in their background or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's actually kind of encouraging to hear because a lot of people think, I need to come from a long line of fabricators or machinists or something like that.
The one that really did push me, I would say my grandfather, my mom's dad. He was going to be a mechanical engineer and then switched to medicine while he was in school. And he really was very influential with me. He taught me how to like build a computer and then work on cars and just taught me a lot of lessons and tools and how to care for them. And I think he actually is the one that got me my first like set of tools. Like I remember like a few screwdrivers and maybe like an adjustable wrench or something. He was really a big part of it. And he kind of understood, I think, more than my parents. And my parents were great. They were very supportive. But it wasn't, all the other neighbor kids were in sports and enjoying sports and very social. And a good time for me during the summer was I'd listen to the radio, be in my room and build Legos, or I took apart, my dad got my brother and I like matching like RC cars from the store. One was red, one was blue. And I think within a month I took mine completely apart because I wanted to see how it worked, and it never went back together again. And my mom was upset. My dad actually took it really well. I thought he was going to be really upset at me. Later on, I saved up a whole bunch of money and bought an RC10 car, like a Team Associates RC car, and built that from scratch with money.
That was on my list of questions, because in my prep notes that I didn't do, but Dom did. Thank you, producer Dom. Talked about how you bought one of the nice RC car kits, that you had to assemble, and I was like, wait a second, we're about the same age. Are you a Team Losi guy or a Team Associated guy or Tamaya?
I'm a Team Associated guy, but I don't know why.
Yep.
At the time, there was like a championship version of an RC10, and I saved for like a year and a half, and I bought the whole thing, and I remember I think it was even to a point where my mom and dad would give me food or money for food at school or other places, and I don't think I ate in preparation for like buying this thing. It was so much fun building it, and then it was everything. Like it, I really struggled with, like Legos were great, but after you built it, it wasn't really very functional. It's just kind of a thing, and this is from a very young age. But when I want to say 11, maybe I was younger when I did the RC10. It was cool because it had real shocks, and you filled it with real oil, and you controlled dampening with where the spring was located, and different kinds of oils and all that stuff.
What I find as a common thread with like the most successful fabricators and machinists and people who are creating stuff with their hands is they want to modify things and continually modify. So I'm the same way with Legos. All of my Legos were in a huge black plastic bag, and I would carry it across my shoulder like Santa Claus and dump it wherever my poor mom was like trying to read a book. But I never built anything and then just put it on a shelf. I would build it and then like try and mod it. And RC cars were really, really a big part of that too, because once it's done, you're adjusting your gear ratios, you're adjusting your springs, you're adjusting, all that stuff.
Yeah, or really for me, it was also, I think that's very true. It was also, hey, I used it and then broke it almost immediately. And so I was like, okay, I have to repair this or replace this or figure this out. It's one of the reasons why I have the Mustang that I've worked on for a long time. It's been my family. I've never actually taken it to a car show. The first car show I went to was the SendCutSend one.
Really?
Yeah. It's never been to a car show.
Really?
No, because I have like zero interest in talking about the car. Like, in like sitting there and looking at it, it looks pretty fine. But
no, I hate doing that too. So a little background for the listeners: we a few times a year we have a little like SendCutSend Cars and Coffee, because a lot of our staff and local customers are into cars. So we close off the parking lot and have a coffee truck. So I'm very honored that your car, after being in the family since '65, got shown for the first time at SendCutSend.
No, I was, and because I was, a lot of people ask me that. Well, don't you show it? Especially living in Reno, like Hot August nights and everything. Yeah. And I go to Hot August nights, but I really find the really obscure vehicles, the guys that people do differently. There'll be like one truck in the entire sea of all of Reno that's just different. And Mustang is not necessarily like the best car. I just have it based on that. A lot of people think I just really love Mustangs, and I do, but not to the same extent. Like I want to go look at a bunch of them. Yeah, especially if they're like original looking.
I think that's another tie-in too, where if you want to be a OEM manufacturer, where you're going to make the same thing a million times over, you're probably going to be more into restoration, and you're going to be more into building something from Legos and putting it on the shelf, having it in the collection. If you're a job shop guy, you're going to be trying to make modifications. You're going to be continually taking it apart. You're going to be continually trying to improve things and continually like dealing with weird stuff that gets thrown at you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's jumping around in time. I did an internship at USS Pasco, which is in Pittsburgh, California, and they make cold rolled steel. They take hot rolled and they squeeze it and they make cold rolled. That's like what they do. And they've been
Was it a
doing
foundry too, or a forge, or whatever you call
No,
it?
they would use heat and they did coatings, but they're still there. But they've been there since 1900
So
something.
they'd get like a big billet from.
They get a
from the
big
mill?
roll, and
Okay.
then they bring it in, they squeeze it. That's like all they do.
Okay.
So, they've been doing it since like 1903 or whatever. I'm sure someone can tell me the date, but that's why Pittsburgh, California has its name. It was named after the Pennsylvania city.
Oh, really? Because
And-
for the steel.
Yeah, it was the West Coast like steel manufacturer, and it was mind-numbingly boring because they've been doing that for 100 years. Phil Linscheid has nothing to offer the steel industry for that's
Yeah.
been doing it for 100 years.
Well, I was talking, one of our previous guests, Jake Holland, was telling us about working at GE. And they've been doing this thing with turbine blades or whatever for so damn long that, if you could find, 0.25% improvement somewhere, you were treated as a god, and
Yeah.
I think some people get a kick out of that, and they like process and they like everything working perfectly day in, day out. But yeah, to me, that would be hell.
Everyone's trying for that same thing, so it's not as though it's static. It's not a static target. Everyone's also trying for that same 0.25% or whatever. Yeah, I get it.
So going back to your grandpa, you said that he was going to be a mechanical engineer, and then he went into medicine, and then you also, in my notes, you said that he had an aircraft at some point too, right?
He had a couple different airplanes. The last airplane he had was a Beechcraft Bonanza with a V-tail.
The doctor killer.
And he was a doctor.
Oh, okay, but he's not dead, right? Or he's
he is
probably dead
fast,
now,
but not
yeah,
from an
okay.
airplane.
Okay. Here's the awkward part of the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I had on my notes. You're like, oh yeah, my grandpa was a doctor and he had an airplane. I have a note in there that says, I bet it was a Bonanza, and it was the doctor killer. And then
Yep.
I was like, how do I
Yeah.
ask you? If
Oh yeah, no, it was a very powerful airplane. He had a couple modifications that he had done to it to where it didn't have the wobble so much. I will also say that Elizabeth, my wife, went flying with us one time and immediately got sick. So
Yeah.
maybe it did wobble and I just didn't notice. But we used to fly a lot when I was younger, and he would take me and my brother up and essentially give us the control in the air and tell us which way to go and how to navigate, how to read different gauges.
Yeah.
He would do this thing where he was probably in his 60s, and he lived to be nearly 90. And he would say, okay, if I pass out, here's what you do. Here's how you're going to take control of the vehicle. And he would do that in cars also.
Yeah.
So at the time, I thought it was really thrilling. My mom didn't think that. She
Yeah.
thought it was not a good plan to teach us that.
But it sounds like he got you your first set of tools. He was kind of showing you the ropes of, some kind of mechanical things. Do you think your path would be different if you didn't have his influence?
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, we share a middle name. He was William is his first name, and everyone would call him Bill. And when he was younger, they call him Billy. And so when I was younger, in fact, my dad still calls me Philly for whatever reason. So I'm Philly Doug is what he would call me. So yeah, I think he's been a huge influence, not just in my namesake, but he was very patient. We would spend a lot of time together. My parents separated when I was pretty young, and my relationship with my mom and dad is really good, probably better than most kids that had parents that were married, in my opinion, because there was no fighting, but my dad was at everything, and there was never an issue there. But my grandfather would fly up from Ventura to the Bay Area often to see us, and I think he saw it as a need to be more involved. And I think my dad and I get along great, and we have a lot of similarities. We're both like working and all these, but we have zero like crossover in terms of like the work that we do. He's a businessman, and
Yeah.
I'm not that, right?
No, it's interesting. Like as I talk to more people, you don't necessarily need to grow up in a household that has these direct influences. It doesn't have to be your dad or your brother or anything like that. It could be your grandpa or whatever. But there still is that bit of mentorship that happens, and sometimes it happens later in life at a job or something like that.
Yeah.
you find a cool coworker that is into a weird hobby, and then you dive in it with them, and then that changes your path a little bit.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's kind of been my story. Is there's been a tremendous amount of mentors, but I never really had a plan. There was like no plan. There kind of still isn't in some ways. I'm just doing the thing that needs to be done. And I think you and I talked about it.
Thanks for showing the enthusiasm for SendCutSend machine. Jesus.
No. What I mean is like it's not this like I don't have this big master plan. Like I don't have a vision board and any of that stuff, right? I'm obsessive, and I've been lucky enough throughout my life to find obsessions. But I've definitely been in my life and had no obsession. So I had like no motivation, and there was no reason to do anything because it wasn't interested in, didn't interest me. And so I'm absolutely obsessed with everything I'm doing now. And so like, quite honestly, there is no plan because I can't see past like the things in my, like on the list of things to do.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, that's cool. I don't have vision boards or, people have asked me for a 5-year plan before, and I just laugh because I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
I think that a lot of people who do have vision boards or very strict plans, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, or, by a certain age, hey, by 35, here's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I think it can set you up for some disappointment. If you're a little more just like go with the flow, or you're like, I'm obsessed with this right now, I'm going to chase it for a little longer.
Yeah.
I think you end up just being happier.
Yeah, 100%. I can associate that with like raising children. So like our first boy, Benjamin, learned to crawl later, and when he learned to crawl, he learned how to crawl backwards first. And so
That's awesome.
when you're at the different birthday parties, and there's 1 and 2 year olds, and there's these string of kids, and they're all playing the same, and your kid's going backwards, you feel like, what am I doing as a parent? What's wrong? What's wrong with this kid? And a couple things, he was later to do different things and earlier to do other things, and it's just like when you start comparing yourself to other people, I feel like you set yourself up for a massive amount of failure that equates to nothing really. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Ben can walk now, and he's 8 years old. So
I've met him. He didn't walk backwards.
But yeah, like that's it's really hard, especially if you look at like your career, or you look at like, I'm 32, I'm not married. Like they're just numbers.
Right.
I wasn't a father until 2017, so I was pretty old. Much older than we thought we were going to be. And for me, like I never really paid attention to it, but if I took a step back and thought about it, it would be, that's not the same as everyone else, But going back to Allie's comment, like nothing is, the path isn't straight. It doesn't need to be straight. What does it matter?
Yeah.
It kind of honestly is like a really good analogy for like what we do here, and that is, it doesn't matter what the print is if there's no print. Does it work? Is it functional? If it's functional, then we win. Right? Then why does it matter if something's not perfect to a print?
SendCutSend, when we first started, it was just cut and ship, and we're like, oh, bending is too hard. We're not going to even talk about that. And then we added bending, and then we added, X, Y, Z, and we're continually changing. So if I had that all on a plan, I think we'd probably be way behind. Maybe ahead, but then lost. Like, I have no idea. So yeah, we operate on no plan, and I think we're comfortable with it.
I love it. Yeah, because the reality for me is that there's a lot of accomplishments that you don't know what the problem is, so you don't know what the victory is either. So why even worry about that? Just focus on what's in front of you. And
yeah, that's something that you and I talked about a little bit this morning. I came in and I was like, oh, hang on, I have to pause and tell you, like, we're doing good, because often we just talk about the problems. We don't talk about the victories because, we actually don't know what victory looks like because we're just like head down, just grinding stuff out. And I think sometimes when you don't know what the goal is, it's hard to like give everyone praise for doing a good job because we haven't hit a goal because there is no goal. Just keep working.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is from the exterior, it's the perception is that we're being successful, right? And so by whatever measure, like, I don't know. And that's the other thing is there's a lot of people that will advertise that we did these amazing goals or we did all these things, and it's all fluff anyway. So for me, that what's more real, like reality for me is the experience, and the not necessarily like, I don't know, achieving some goal. I don't know.
Let's skip ahead to, you're like 12 flying the Dr. Killer airplane around with your grandpa who's threatening to pass out and make you fly.
Yeah.
So early years, and now let's get into like high school level. What are you doing in high school? What are your interests? Are you driving the 65? Are you restoring it? Like, are you
No.
the coolest kid ever having the 65 in high school?
No, I went to high school with a lot of really cool kids. They had a lot of really cool cars, a lot of Trans Ams, a lot of Mustangs, a lot of 5.0 Mustangs. And no, I was not that kid.
What were you
So
driving?
I had a 91 Camaro, but it was a 6-cylinder.
That was your first car?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
a T-top.
that was pretty cool.
It was-
Except for the 6-cylinder.
Yeah, the
Like,
6-cylinder
that's
wasn't
pretty-
great.
yeah.
It was exactly perfect for me.
Did it have dual exhaust?
It had fake dual exhaust. I had one
Yeah.
pipe going to the back, and then it would split. I did a bunch of stuff. I built my own like subwoofer box for that car, and it's amazing. That car actually, the volume inside is so small that I had two twin 8-inch speakers, and the music was great in that car. The acoustics were really good because that huge like 400-pound hatch or whatever, it wasn't 400, but it's super heavy. Because that car was not a great car, I wound up fixing a lot of things. I think I redid the weather stripping like 3 different times.
Especially with T-tops.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And there was just a leak always. So that was my first car in high school. So I played water polo mostly because my friends played water polo. I started in pre-high school, like junior high. And I was the, not coordinated, not athletic kid, but I had friends that we all liked music together, and they were in water polo. And so during the summers, if I wanted to spend time with them, I'd have to be in that thing.
So my wife was a swimmer, and during the Olympics or whatever, we always watch the swimming, and then during that there's water polo, and they show the underwater camera, and it seems like the meanest freaking sport.
It's a
ever.
very aggressive sport.
Yeah, like they beat the crap out of each other
Yeah.
underwater, right? And they're like pinching and stuff too.
Oh yeah,
It's like
yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's like all kinds of tactics. It's a good sport when before this is in high school, or actually even in 8th grade, I played this as well. And the refs actually ask you to put your hands on the deck of the pool, and they come and check the sharpness of your fingernails to see how sharp they are. And they do the same thing with your fingernails.
So
as well.
I can barely swim. Like with like a lung full of air, I can lay at the bottom of a pool because of how I'm built.
Yeah.
And my wife's this amazing swimmer, and I can't swim with her. Like, and then we watch water polo, and to me that just looks like death.
Yeah.
I would drown and die. I have a lot of respect for
Yeah,
for
it
people
was.
who can do that.
I really enjoyed it. Water polo was great. It was a great sport for me because in high school, especially, we would have an hour of practice in the morning before high school, and then we'd have 2-hour practice in the afternoon. And so it was, for a hyperactive kid, it was. I would describe myself as that. I kind of needed to be worn down so that's how it worked. And that's pretty much how I go throughout life. A lot of people like struggle with sleeping. I literally do everything I can until I just turn off. I'm done. And so that's actually worked out pretty well.
Was high school like your peak? Are you the guy going to class reunions and stuff? Are you loving high school? Are you like on the graduation day? You're like, see you later. I'm out of here.
No, I was it definitely didn't peak in high school. I don't think anyone really knew me in high school, frankly. High school water polo was great because I was in sports enough not to get beat up by the real football and baseball jocks, but not in sports, right? So it was like a sweet spot. And most of the people that were athletic in football or baseball or whatever, soccer, couldn't swim. So they couldn't really give me much of a hard time.
Okay. So because, again, in my notes, I'm going to talk about all my notes.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
again, thank you, Dominic
You're
Longley,
welcome.
for doing all my research for me. Where I'm heading is, in your senior year, your senior project was to restore the 65, right?
So yeah, what led up to that was at the summer of my freshman year, or maybe it was the summer of my sophomore year, I signed up for and became a lifeguard. And there's a regional park district in the Bay Area called East Bay Regional Park District. It's very, very big. They have places in Oakland and Berkeley, all these different places. And so I was a lifeguard for actually 6 years during the summers. And for 3 years of that, I was doing that during high school.
With your skin complexion, you were a lifeguard?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't say it made a lot of good choices. I'm just saying. So, but see, I've always loved the water and been decently good at the water.
For those who are just listening,
Yeah.
Phil is pale ginger.
Yeah.
So
My freckles combine in the sun. Yeah. They don't necessarily I don't get darker. So I was a lifeguard, and as a result, I was working during the summers. And so the summer before my senior year, I really wasn't going, and they had water polo practice during the summer, which I didn't go to because I was working and I was making money. And so as a result, and this is where I think the coach kind of held that against me. So my senior year, I actually didn't make the water polo team. And because of that, I was devastated. My parents were trying to figure something out. I needed to do something for a senior project. And so I don't know whose idea it was, but the Mustang and restoring the Mustang came out of my failed water polo career, essentially.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so because I didn't make the team, my dad, my brother, and I drove down to Ventura where the car was with my grandparents, and we hauled it back up, and that's when the Mustang project started for high school.
So you were 18 as a senior.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
which is awesome. For those of you young guys who are listening, and maybe you're going to turn 18, turning 18 as a senior is great because then you just sign yourself out and you never go to school.
Yeah, no, I went to school every day. I would sign myself out and then go to auto shop. My mom, there was a form to sign, and I think it was around this time where she was like really worried about me. She just signed whatever. And so she basically gave me permission to not go to class because I would sign myself out. Interestingly enough, my grades actually went up because I was so mind-numbingly bored, I think, in class that when it came time to do homework, I had to figure it out, and I already had 8 hours of fun in the auto shop during the day. So it's like, oh, I'm kind of tired. Maybe I'll sit down and do this homework. So my actually grades went up.
What kind of grades did you get through school? Like, what's your...
So like it depends on the subject. So I would get A's and C's.
Okay.
Yeah, if I really loved it, I would get if I was obsessed, then I would get very, very good scores.
Yeah.
If I didn't care about it, I would do the minimal.
Yeah.
Or sometimes less than the minimal.
I think that sticks with you too. Like there's some stuff that I'm absolutely incredible at, and then there's some stuff that I am the worst person in the world. It's because if I care or not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people try and fight that because they're like, oh, well, this is what society wants me to do. But I say just double down on the stuff that you like.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of examples of people that have been successful with passion versus because they followed some kind of plan.
Yeah.
You know, in high school, it was water polo and friends and music and stuff, and then it was the Mustang was my obsession. All my friends were still in water polo. I was pretty much the only one that didn't make the team. And so I spent most of my time on the car, in class, and then on the weekends and everything like that. And the deal was, it was still my grandparents' car. They were paying for all the parts, and then I would put all the labor in.
Okay.
And so new suspension, and you know how old cars, you fix one thing and the next thing breaks.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of how it all happened. And then from there, I graduated. I think I maybe took my SATs. I honestly don't remember. Maybe I took the practice ones. I had no idea what I wanted to do. My parents essentially were like, look, you have to go to school so you can be on insurance. So go to school. I'm like, okay. So I went to school and stumbled into a welding program while I was in community college, and then took all the welding classes, loved it, thought I was going to be a welder. And then we had a union rep come out, and very soon after that, I decided I don't want to be a welder.
Can you dive into that a little bit? Like, tell us.
I was working in the Bay Area also, so the jobs that were out there they paid pretty well, but I would have to drive pretty far into the Bay.
Is this like structural type welding?
Yeah.
That kind of union stuff?
Yeah, or like pipe fitting,
Okay.
or
Yep,
different
yep.
stuff like that. So I was properly trained in gas stick and TIG welding, and then in brazing also. I've had actually no formal education in MIG welding, even though I've probably put more hours in MIG welding total in my life. And it didn't seem right. And then at that point, I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, when you were younger, you really had an interest in going to Chico State and they have a mechatronics program, which essentially is like robotic engineer. It's electrical, it's computer science, it's mechanical, and you like basically what BattleBots would be, or maybe any kind of other robot.
Yeah.
And so I essentially transferred, but I transferred with very few units because almost no welding units transfer. So I transferred as like a second year, but almost no units really. I had like English and math and some science and stuff. And then I took a manufacturing class, and then I just never left. And at that time, Chico State didn't require you to declare. You could just go to college and be like, hey, I want to get a degree. And they'd be like, cool, come on board. And then later, you would have to declare like as a sophomore or maybe even later than that. So I just started going, basically, fell into manufacturing. There was a class we took that you did everything. So you would start out with like a high-speed steel bit, and then you'd grind the cutter, and then you'd use that cutter to make parts, and then the parts you'd make would be the next thing in it.
Oh, yeah, that's
like
that's like mining the ore and then smelting the steel. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very systematic and very like for someone like me, it just made a lot of sense. And so
did anything click like at these?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're like, oh man, this is pushing all the buttons.
Yeah, and it was very lab intensive. So the every course we had was, I think, I don't know how many hours a week, but heavy in the lab.
See, and I think that's the secret for a lot of people. I know my brief, ultra brief stint at University of Nevada, Reno, there was no labs. And I was like, this is stupid. If this is what college is, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Having the labs as frequently and early in your college career, I think it'll help significantly.
It was, looking back on it, like I couldn't have, and going back to it, like there was no plan. I had no idea that this program even existed. And the program was super small. So at the time, I think Chico State maybe had like 16,000 students. And I think we had like 90 in the entire program all years. So like we were graduating like 20 to 30, maybe 15 a year. And that was the size. So it was honestly like, I'm sure all of the administrative folks of Chico were like, this one doesn't make any sense. And frankly, it's really hard to justify. You need a massive amount of square footage, a lot of really expensive, heavy things.
Yeah.
And then you're not having the students come into it. Really, it's a small group. But that was actually what was kind of fun is that Dirk Vanderloop, he was one of the professors, and he would do the name game. And so every semester, every new class, it would go, okay, my name's Phil Linscheid, and Jim would say, okay, that's Phil Linscheid, I'm Jim Bolosic. And then we'd go around the room, and then he would do it. And so we got to know everybody. And so even to this day, when I think of like certain people, I can't say their name without saying their first and last name, because that's how I learned it. But it was super, it was kind of like a fraternity in ways, right? Where it was like this brotherhood of people, and there were some girls in there too, but this really tight-knit group of people.
I hear that a lot about like trade schools too, where it's a smaller classroom environment, or like lineman school or something like that. There's 20 students, and yeah, you become like, brothers or siblings or whatever, because you're learning the same stuff, eating at the same places, 100%. Doing the same stuff.
Mark Tomei was my lab partner in college, like the lab partner I had in every lab. We did things together, and it was cool because he was good at certain things or better at certain things than I was, and we could kind of help ourselves through.
So as you're going to Chico, you're learning to weld, or no, you learned to weld community college. Chico, you're learning mechatronics. Are you still welding? Like, how are you? Do you have a job at this point?
Yeah. So I worked so my dad told me about the place called Thomas Welding, and they make agricultural equipment. And so they have three businesses. They have basically like a fab shop that fixes anything that breaks, that's welding. They have another one where they weld and sell a product. And then they have a hydraulic shop where they can fix any kind of hydraulic problem you have. And so I went and interviewed there, and I actually worked there part-time throughout college. And I would work there 20 to 30 hours a week always, and usually I had a full load. But that was kind of like, that worked for me. I needed to have always something else. There was like my fun, and that's the thing I think a lot of people maybe see, maybe they don't see, but most of my fun is work. Like anything that I do for fun is actually some people's job.
Yeah.
But it's not for me because that's just not how I see it. So, I remember someone when I was younger was like, "You should be a mechanic. You love working on cars." I'm like, "No, I like working on cars. I don't want to work on them for a living. I want to do something else."
No, that's a fast way to ruin your love of a hobby is by
Yeah.
trying to turn it into your work. Yeah.
So when I started at Thomas Welding, I literally did the push broom for a period of time, maybe weeks. And then when somebody
Did you just like walk in and you're like,
I interviewed my dad.
or your dad had a connection?
My
there?
dad basically they gave me a shot, and and also I was making like less than $5 an hour, so they're like whatever. It's like it was very.
And isn't this in like 2000? Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty low, but Chico State or Chico area really low. I remember. I don't know if I told you this story, but so I started there in probably August or September. I'd worked there for 3 months, and the foreman came up to me. His name was Dave. And he's like, "Phil, you did a really great job this last few months. We're going to give you a raise." And so it was a 25-cent an hour raise. And I was like, I was more excited about like the fact that he acknowledged me because Dave was a pretty rough guy, and he was a good guy, but he was hard sometimes. And then the federal minimum went up the following year.
Oh shit!
To that amount. So they just pre-told me that they were going to give me what the government had to.
Nice.
Yeah. So
you're pushing a broom. I mean, would they grab you to weld anything?
Yeah. So I started.
Okay.
I pushed a broom for a few weeks, and then it was
That's
they
a
had
cheap welder.
Oh yeah. I pushed a broom, and then they had some manual turning work that I would do, and then they had like a bunch of drilling. So they'd have like a gang drill press with like 6 or 7 drills, and you set them all up with different sizes, and you'd drill holes in like square tubing. And I don't know if anyone's ever drilled holes in square tubing, but it always grabs and like wants to kind of like twist. And so the idea was not to break drill bits and not get my arm ripped off. And then after that, it was welding, and then I made who knows how many tapered threads on a rigid pipe thing. But for many, many, many hours, I just did whatever. If that was welding or if that was touch-up or grind work, painting. There was a couple days or at least one day where I washed their big 18-wheeler. So changed the oil, the 15 gallons or whatever that thing took.
Just doing anything. Yeah.
And it was funny because there were a lot of the shop guys that would ask me, because I didn't really complain about it because I never really thought that I could, or it never occurred to me to complain. And I think that comes from my parents. So I remember they had this shop, and then behind it they had this almond orchard, and they had this massive like 2-inch pipe sandblaster, and they had this huge pile of sand, and then they fired up a special compressor just to blast steel that they would buy. They would buy steel today for like a year from now, and they would just leave it outside.
Okay.
And they would blast it, and then you'd weld it. And so you put on this like kind of welding helmet, and then it had an air hose that would put in a little bit of air, but it wasn't sealed. And so I would go sandblast for 8 hours sometimes in the Chico heat.
Making
$5.25 an hour or whatever it was.
I was making $7.15 at Office Depot.
Yeah, in air conditioning. Yeah. That's a little bit
And I got
better.
to drive a forklift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I actually learned how to drive a manual on a forklift because they had manual forklifts there.
Oh God, that adds a level of complexity.
Yeah, they had manual. You'd have forward and reverse, and then you would also have first, second, and third.
But with a clutch?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so are you having to feather the clutch to like
creep
inch?
forward?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
I learned how to do that. I learned how to drive a stick there, actually. So my point is, when I would sandblast, I would have sand everywhere. It'd be in my teeth, like you could just taste it for a little bit. Yeah. And then guys would always be like, "Oh my gosh, aren't you so upset?" I never even thought to complain because I'm like, they needed it done. I did it.
Yeah.
I had fun.
I would say as an employer, when I see a personality like that, they're going to be very successful, whether it's with this company or any other company.
Yeah.
It's the guys where you go, "Hey man, I know this is a little outside of your normal job description. Can you go do this?" And they get mad or they get frustrated or whatever. I'm like, "You're not going to make it, know, and you're not going to make it with me, and you're probably not going to make it anywhere, and you're going to be perpetually frustrated." So having, I guess, maybe curiosity or the lack of complaining, combined with like, well, this is a job, they're paying me for it. Maybe it sucks at the time, but man, if you can pull that off as a personality trait, you're guaranteed to be successful.
Yeah. No, it was something I think that my parents instilled with me. I don't know if they actually did it on like purposefully, but that's what the result was.
Yeah. So, what about internships? Because I know you had, that was a job at Taylor, but then as you're going through your college career, internships?
So in college, I always had jobs and I was getting paid for them. So prior to my last year, like in my junior year, I went and did a co-op with NUMMI, which is what used to be, it's Tesla now, but it's a factory where Toyota and General Motors had a factory together in California. Okay. And so I interned there.
What were they making there?
They made the Tacoma,
okay.
Corolla, and the Pontiac Vibe, spectacular vehicle.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
The Vibe actually and the Corolla are the same chassis.
The Vibe, was it the Vibe R that had that weird Yamaha engine in it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know that piece of trivia, but...
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, and so I worked on the Tacoma line as a quality control engineer with a guy, and we were focused mostly on the interior.
Okay.
But essentially what the idea was, it was working with suppliers and vendors to make sure that what we were getting was correct and making sure that it would work properly, and then trying to figure out when we had problems like troubleshooting.
So can you talk a little bit about internships in general? If you're speaking to an audience of young people that maybe have the opportunity to do an internship, are you like, what kind of advice can you give? Like, do you avoid them? Do you get everyone you can? Are you selective?
I think you get everyone you can. And this kind of goes back to the whole like theme where we're talking about like plans don't make sense. A lot of people won't do an internship or won't do a co-op because it pushes out their graduation date, which is just an arbitrary date. So there's quite a few people that I went to school with, and also other students that are like, oh, I can't do it because it's going to push my date of graduation out. And it's like, but you're separating yourself out from a very large group of people into a small group of people by doing a co-op or an internship. So for me, I also feel like, I think you go get as many as you can. I think that if you don't think it quite makes sense, do it anyway. There's a lot of people that find passions and loves and things they never thought of. And so, I mean, you're a kid. What do you know? Go do it and figure it out, right?
No, I'm 1,000,000% like, please go taste it, before you decide to like dedicate your life to it and you haven't even tried it. My dad was an architect, and so for a long time I wanted to be an architect. And then one summer he's like, "Cool, come with me. You're gonna help me." And I was running blueprints, and then eventually he would let me make some modifications to drawings. But this is the old school days. He was just learning CAD, but he still had drafting table. And I was like, oh my God, this whole job is just like erasing lines and then adding a new line and sharpening pencils. I was like, this is nightmare. But that quote unquote internship, or getting a taste of that, it steered me. And I think it's really important for people to like, if you want to be a lawyer, like go hang out with a lawyer for a little while, for the love of God, like get as close as you can before you do, 6 years of schooling in order to pick a career that you might hate.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice really for anybody. I was huge on that. I came back my senior year. I had several different jobs. I just kept trying to like outdo myself, I think. And my biggest enemy is me, or my biggest challenge is like overcoming me, really. So earlier, you were talking about earlier on the shop floor. You're like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not saying anything positive." I'm like, honestly, you're saying all the negative things that are already on my mind. So like, I don't see it as negative. I just see it as you're actually making a connection with me, and we're on the same page. So for me, as weird as it sounds, hearing what you don't like and it matching me is actually like it reinforces a behavior, or reinforces a thought process.
We've been talking about how paths aren't straight, but when you hear something like that, I'm like, "Oh, I'm on the right path." So I think both of our paths are very, very crooked, but it's encouraging to have someone like kind of back up your intuition. I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank God I'm doing the right thing." I think oftentimes I just don't know if I'm doing it wrong or right. I'm just doing it. To have a peer that's kind of thinking the same way is nice.
So when I came back for my senior year, I did not go back to Thomas Welding, or I did for a very small amount of time. Like much less hours per week, and then I eventually faded off doing that. I worked for a guy named Jeff Lindsay, who was just a wonderful human being. It was him and his shop and me. And so we made.
Is this glass blowing? Okay.
Yeah. So he actually.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Dom, for that research.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Cutting Edge Products was the name of the company. It's changed to Red Hot Metal now. But Jeff and I would do anything that came in the door. He was really good friends with Ken Grossman, who's the founder of Sierra Nevada Brewery. They were like lifelong friends, and so we would get weird jobs from Sierra Nevada. And sometimes some big welding projects. And so Jeff and I worked in the shop. We listened to music and made parts, and it was euphoric is the easiest way I would explain it. And the way we met was there was a project from, I think it was California Highway something or other, or no, it was a sub project from Lawrence Livermore Labs. They had a semi truck, I guess, a guy that like took a semi truck and tried to like drive it into the Sacramento Capitol. And they're like, how are we going to stop semis? So we were in school developing a way for Highway Patrol to deactivate the brakes, or like to activate the brakes on a semi truck as it's driving down the highway. And so we came up with
Cut the airline?
So yeah, basically. But
Big scissors?
So what we came up with was, I think it was called a truck stop or truck bump or something, and it would attach on the, no, just so we're clear, this was a paper exercise. So Lawrence was like, we're going to solve it. They put a bunch of money into it. We did a bunch of stuff. We made a bunch of samples, and then nothing happened with it. But I worked on a device that, a couple of different designs where if it was bumped, you had 2-stage solenoids, and they were mechanical solenoids. So if you bumped the back of the truck, it would go to the first stage, and if you bumped it again, it would release the air because semis have air for the brakes to be off. So
right.
So
they fail safe, right?
Correct, okay. Exactly. And so anyway, so I needed some things welded that I couldn't do at the Chico State shop, so I brought it to Jeff. And then he's like, oh, it's a pretty cool project. And he was like, hey, you ever think about doing anything like this? I'm like, actually, I'm looking for a job. He's like, cool. So then he offered me a job, and I started working for him. And I worked for him for a year. It's funny, I worked there for a year, but it was one of the more impactful years of my life working with Jeff, just because he was such a cool guy, very patient. He gave me a hard time, and I didn't understand it. I remember I was knurling some parts on a lathe manually, and there's this brush that's aluminum that's spun, and they have like brush hairs. They're super cheap. They're like 5 cents. And I was oiling the knurl, and it got the brush got dragged into it, and like completely knurled the brush into the part.
Oh, great! Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, that's coming out of your paycheck." And I thought he was serious. I didn't know how much this brush was, and I was like devastated because I made this mistake. And he's like, "I'm joking with you, Phil." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was that kid, kind of like, in a way, I think kind of sheltered from those kinds of things.
I think working with a small shop or any small business where there's some like guys with good senses of humor, or they've been around the block a little bit, it's very formative, especially as a young man. Like I worked with a couple old dudes in a really tiny sign shop, and they taught me stuff they shouldn't have taught me. I'd grow up really fast that summer. But yeah, if you're not getting it from like your dad or your uncle or something like that, if they're not razzing you, you can go out into the world and not be ready for that kind of stuff. So it's good to have those experiences.
Yeah. And I think looking back, I think my dad actually was doing those things, but I was so not paying attention to anything, so I wouldn't say it was his fault. I think that it was mostly, I feel like generally I was kind of oblivious to a lot of like that when I was younger. Yeah. So I worked for Jeff, and then I also did a small amount of projects for the university as like a prototype machinist for the mechanical engineering group. And that was good. Looking back, I was absolutely nowhere near qualified to do that job. Yeah. There were people in the career or the program that were significantly more qualified, but I came about it because I was just kind of always eager to say yes. I think that's kind of how it happened is Mike Ward, who I think was I don't know if he was a dean or what his position was, but he was like, hey, Phil, you're hyper. Do you want to do this? And so they gave me keys to the shop, and I would go into the shop by myself at weird hours during the day, which is completely unsafe. and would do whatever I could to make the parts.
So you've had this experience in college. You've had a couple cool jobs. A year out of college, you've worked with a super small shop. We don't have time to cover everything, but then you had a career at Haas Automation.
Yeah.
You had a career at the largest machine shop in Nevada. You've worked with massive companies and then very tiny companies. I know we talked about not having 5-year plans or whatever, but in the future, let's say we've talked about this before, where there's no real concept of retirement for either one of us. But let's say you get to choose what you do. What's your ideal fill situation day to day? Are you working with a group of 2 guys or 3 guys long term, if you could have your choice, or are you running a huge team? Where are you happiest, knowing that you've had experiences all over the place? Where would you go back if you could pick one?
I really enjoyed working with Jeff Lindsay.
Yeah.
I will say I think part of the reason why I look so positively on that experience is that was the shortest job I've ever had, and so I only did it for a year.
Okay.
Quite honestly, what we're doing right now is pretty damn fun. I like the fact that everything is an option. All options are available to me. That's not been the case. That's something that was actually really prevalent at Haas Automation is they would do things there that no billion-dollar company should ever do, because Gene Haas was like, we're going to do it. And they would make tons of mistakes to make a good thing. And I learned a lot. In fact, actually, that's one of the, when I left, so I left Haas to go to a small company and do automation in Illinois. And it occurred to me after I quit Haas that I realized that I was judging them by the wrong measure. If you look at Haas Automation, you think, okay, are they the best machine tool in the world? They're just not. They never will be. But that's not the goal. The goal is for them to be, you look at the number of, if you look at the number of individuals making a living on a machine tool, it's Haas. People, right? You and me. People that buy a machine, don't know what they're doing, but they have this really cool thing they designed in Fusion.
Well, it's like a bicycle, right? Huffy makes a lot of bicycles and has taught a lot of guys to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Are they the best?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not a specialized S-Works or whatever, but
yeah. I don't know that
we have Haas machines, by the way.
Yeah.
They're good. They work good for us. We have many different machines, but we have a few Haas.
Well, and it's not a, and that's the thing. A lot of people get upset when I say that. It's actually the opposite. I have a deep-seated love for that company and love for the people there, because they're doing things in spite of the rules.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of wrap up, it sounds like you're saying it doesn't really matter the size of the company. It matters what they're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think the thing for me is the thing that has made me leave companies is opportunity in front of me and my ability to affect change in an unrealistic pace. I like to do things at a pace that is thought to be not achievable, and we're not talking about perfect change. We're talking about 70, 80%, maybe a passing grade, maybe. But my ability to affect change is I think the thing that I'm good at.
So for us, going from a literally empty building, in April?
We had no building in April.
No building. Going from no building to now we're running full production.
Yeah.
And what is it? It's July?
Yeah.
April? That's
July.
I don't know the math on that, but it's not long. Yeah.
I've been an employee for 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So and not to put any.
So this is a good fit. Yeah.
This is an amazing fit. And quite I really hope that everyone can find a place that truly makes them happy. And every job I've had has made me happy.
Yeah.
In some level. And frankly, that would be one piece of advice is that for anyone listening or anyone that thinks their job isn't great, unfortunately, it might be your fault. It might not be the company's fault, right? A lot of people say, oh, they didn't give me opportunities. No one's ever given me an opportunity. I just kind of started doing things and kept doing it, and then eventually they needed me to do it and I already knew. So sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. But for me, sometimes it's your fault. And in my career, my lifetime, when I left Haas, I worked there twice, 2 different times. And then when I left the first time, it was my problem. It wasn't Haas's problem. Haas was doing a lot of really cool things, and I was using the wrong metric.
I've seen that with some startups too, where people will go to a startup and they just can't deal with it. They don't know what's going on. It's too chaotic. It's too disorganized. Things are changing too much. And it's because their personality isn't cut out for it. They would be better off going to GE or IBM or something like that. Yeah. And so maybe be true to yourself. You know, if you're curious, if you like change, go to somewhere that's going to guarantee that. If you like stability and like planning, and maybe go somewhere else. So I like that. You can kind of choose your own path by selecting a company that's going to fit.
Throughout most of my career, when I would talk to new hires or talk to engineers, I would always write manufacturing on the whiteboard, and then I'd write chaos, and I'd write an equal sign in between them. I'd say manufacturing is chaos. So, and that's one of the reasons I love it. If we were manufacturing toothpicks, there would be some level of chaos, right? Something wouldn't happen. A truck would get a flat tire to bring us the wood or whatever. And it's a matter of like keeping busy on those things. So using SendCutSend as an example, it's chaos because we don't know exactly what's happening. We're trying to make these plans, but if you also look, like the shop is organized and labeled, and we're very systematic about how we do things, and there is a way to do it. So in one way, I kind of like to play both ends of that spectrum. And for me, every spectrum is a circle. So really, I just, it's like, you've heard like the most 2 insane people, right? Think about like politics, whatever. They're both insane. They're so insane that they're touching each other because the spectrum is a circle, right? So like that's me, right? On one hand, I have 0 issues if you come and say, hey, we're moving buildings tomorrow. I'd be like, cool. But at the same time, when you're not here, I'm going to be like, all right, we're going to label that box, we're going to tape this, and we're going to have a process. So it gives me both. And I feed off of both ends of that. So for me, it's really a good sweet spot. And it was actually very fun. It's worth noting that my kids, who are 5 and 8, and my parents have everyone has been like, wow, you really do seem to enjoy it, because there's just something about what I'm doing. And it's the people, and I think it's not just what we're doing at SendCutSend, but what SendCutSend is, to me, is more sacred than just like a place.
Yeah. Well, and we can't hire all of our listeners. We'll do our best, but there are many, many companies out there that can fit your personality. Whether it's a startup or something more stable or whatever. And this has been a great chat. It's been a great takeaway to say, like, hey, find something that is a good fit for you. And so, like, know yourself, and head towards the chaos or head away from it. But if you do what's going to be best for you, you'll be happy. So, dude, awesome. Thank you for coming on the show. Do we have an outro? Am I supposed to say something?
Can you say, like, thanks for listening? Love to have your feedback. Find us on Insta and YouTube at SendCutSend.
Can we just use that?
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at justgonnasendit@sendcutsend.com, or find us on socials at SendCutSend at Jim Belosic. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and share with your friends. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.